الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome everybody to a beautiful and warm sunny Tuesday in the great state of New Jersey. It's the month of August, so things are nice and calm, and we're just prepping for the next school year, in which we're going to have a lot of stuff going on, tons of stuff going on. At NBIC, at Safina Society, of course, we have the 4 classes that we give to the different age groups, and then we have Hifz Academy, Alcove Hifz Academy, we call it. Then we have Dar al-Fath classes at the same time. So we got a lot of classes going on. We got a lot of activity, but that's what you do. You be active. Haraka baraka. Just continue to be active, and life will be good. So let's go to Dalailul Khayrat. Let's read a little bit of the Dalail. And if you can go to my iPad for that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. أسألك يا الله يا الله يا الله يا حي يا قيوم يا ذا الجلال والإكرام لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. أسألك بما حمل كرسيك من عظمتك وجلالك وبهائك وقدرتك وسلطانك، وبحق أسمائك المخزونة المكنونة المطهرة التي لم يطلع عليها أحد من خلقك، وبحق الاسم الذي وضعته على الليل فأظلم، وعلى النهار فاستنار، وعلى السماوات فاستقلت، وعلى الأرض فاستقرت، وعلى البحار فانفجرت، وعلى العيون فنبعت، وعلى السحاب فأمطرت. وأسألك بالأسماء المكتوبة في جبهة جبريل عليه السلام، وبالأسماء المكتوبة في جبهة إسرافيل عليه السلام، وعلى جميع الملائكة. وأسألك بالأسماء المكتوبة حول العرش، وبالأسماء المكتوبة حول الكرسي. وأسألك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الذي سميت به نفسك. وأسألك بحق أسمائك كلها وما علمت منها وما لم أعلم. أسألك بالأسماء التي دعاك بها آدم عليه السلام، والأسماء التي دعاك بها نوح عليه السلام، والأسماء التي دعاك بها صالح عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها يونس عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها موسى عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها هارون عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها شعيب عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها إبراهيم عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها إسماعيل عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها داود عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها سليمان عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها زكريا عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها يوشع عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها الخضر عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها إلياس عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها إلياس عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها ذو الكفل عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها عيسى عليه السلام، وبالأسماء التي دعاك بها محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيك ورسولك وحبيبك وصفيك، يا من قاله قوله الحق والله خلقكم وما تعملون، ولا يصدر عن أحد من عبيده قول ولا فعل ولا حركة ولا سكون إلا وقد سبق في علمه وقضائه وقدره كيف يكون، كما ألهمتني وقضيت لي بجمع هذا الكتاب ويسرت علي في الطريق والأسباب، ونفيت عن قلبي في هذا النبي الكريم الشك والارتياب، وغلبت حبه عندي على جميع الأقرباء والأحباء. أسألك يا الله يا الله يا الله أن ترزقني وكل من أحبه واتبعه وشفاعته ومرافقته يوم الحساب من غير مناقشة ولا عذاب ولا توبيخ ولا عتاب، وأن تغفر لي ذنوبي وتستر عيوبي يا وهاب يا غفار، وأن تنعمني بالنظر إلى وجهك الكريم في جملة الأحباب يوم المزيد والثواب، وأن تتقبل مني عملي، وأن تعفو عما أحاط علمك به من خطيئتي ونسياني وزللي، وأن تبلغني من زيارة قبره والتسليم عليه وعلى صاحبيه غاية أملي بمنك وفضلك وجودك وكرمك يا رؤوف يا رحيم يا ولي، وأن تجازيه عني وعن كل من آمن به واتبعه من المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات أفضل وأتم وأعم ما جازيت به أحدا من خلقك يا قوي يا عزيز يا علي. وأسألك اللهم بحق ما أقسمت به عليك أن تصلي على محمد وعلى آل محمد عدد ما خلقت من قبل أن تكون السماء مبنية والأرض مدحية والجبال علوية والعيون منفجرة والبحار مسخرة والأنهار منهمرة والشمس مضيئة والقمر مضيئا والنجم منيرا ولا يعلم أحد حيث تكون إلا أنت وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد كلامك وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد آيات القرآن وحروفه وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد من يصلي عليه وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد من لم يصلي عليه وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله ملء أرضك وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد ما جرى به القلم في أم الكتاب وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد ما خلقت في 7 سماواتك وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد ما أنت خالقه فيهن إلى يوم القيامة في كل يوم 1000 مرة وأن تصلي عليه وعلى آله عدد قطر المطر وكل قطرة قطرت من سمائك إلى أرضك من يوم خلقت الدنيا إلى يوم القيامة في كل يوم 1000 مرة سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Recently, Blogging Theology put up a post which was actually from Clarifying Light, so it's like there's a chain of transmission on a post here. And by the way, we have a sponsor for today. Got different sponsors each time, and this time it's Chicago Fragrance. And Elif, while we're talking, you can go through their website if you want. You know, fragrance is one of the things of Sunnah, of all the luxuries of life. Fragrance was the Prophet's preferred and possibly only. And I like their logo here. It's all black. Their website's all black and gold. Nice look here. And they got cursive and sans serif fonts. So I think design-wise, they know what they're doing. So Elif will go through the website here while you just slowly go through the pages while I cover this. So the analogy of the atheist and the barber first was put up by Clarifying Light, then by Blogging Theology, then I saw it, then I put it up myself. Okay. But what we want to talk about here is a discussion regarding analogy that ensued, which was a nice discussion. Okay. Anytime that you give an analogy, by definition, by form, the analogy, the two things that you are showing the similarity to must be different. Because if they were the same, we wouldn't need an analogy. We would literally say, this is what it is. So if you're trying to say to me, what's an apricot? I say, you ever see a peach? Yeah, I've seen a peach. Well, it's a smaller version, very similar texture, a little bit of a different taste, right? So you can't now then say that that's false by pointing to a difference between the peach and the apricot, which is that apricot tend to have one color. Apricots sometimes are not fuzzy on the outside. Okay. Why is that? Because you're failing to understand what an analogy is. An analogy, by definition, there must be a difference between the two, but there is enough of a similarity that I'm saying that on these matters, it's the same. Because if the two things were exactly the same, I wouldn't need an analogy. I would just say that's what it is. Like I have apricots and peaches on the table, and you say to me, what's an apricot? I say, it's that one right there. I mean, it happens with kids all the time. Hey, Pop, what's a pear? A pear is sort of like an apple, because the textures are pretty similar. The taste is different. The colors are different. The shape is different, but in essence, it's kind of sort of like an apple. And I think that's fair to say about pears, right? It's the most similar fruit. Is a kiwi more similar to a pear or an apple? No, an apple. Mango, pineapple, banana, peach, right? Maybe guava, but you're going far off. So I would say the pear, kind of like an apple, but it tastes different, got a different shape, but it's kind of like an apple. Let's take other things. New kid gets a car, doesn't go for oil change, doesn't wash it, doesn't clean the inside. You say to him, listen, all right, getting a new car, it's like getting a laptop. You have a laptop, if you had a phone, getting a car is similar. You got to take care of it. You got to take it for oil change. You got to do all these things. He says, yeah, but I charge phones and you don't charge cars. That's not the point. The point is you have to take care of the same thing. Like, then that same kid has a baby. So what's it like having a baby? It's kind of like having a car. You got to take care of it, but you have to take care of it 10 times more. You take care of your car, right? Same way. You got to take care of your baby. Oh, but one's alive and one's dead. One's not alive. Sorry. That's not the point. The point is the time commitment to take care of it. So analogy by definition must be limited. Otherwise, it is the thing and we don't need analogy. We can just simply say that's what it is. Okay. Take again the example of a fruit. You're sitting around and I say, hey guys, I've heard that you guys have a fruit here called jackfruit. Tell me about it. I've never heard of it. I mean, most Westerners have never heard of a jackfruit unless you've been to India. Then how's the guy going to explain it except through similarities? But if it's on the table, okay, and he said if he has a fruit that has no differences from a jackfruit, then it is a jackfruit. Then you don't need to make an analogy. You say that's what it is right there. So when somebody responds to an analogy by saying, that's a falsehood, that's a fallacy because the two things are different, that itself is the fallacy. Now, if you want to be more precise, you have to limit the scope. And that's what happens here. So the idea here, the analogy is a barber is sitting, a Muslim is getting his hair cut, and the barber's an atheist. The barber says, I don't believe in God. The Muslim says, why? He says, because God is perfect. There's a lot of bad things going on outside. He says, well, I don't believe in barbers. He says, why don't you believe in barbers? He says, because there's a lot of people with shaggy hair out there. Disheveled hair, long hair, never got a shape up, never got a trim. He said, well, no, that doesn't mean barbers don't exist. That just means those people don't go to the barber. He says, likewise, evil people exist because they're not following God's law. God gave the law. God gave guidance on behavior. All forms of behavior, emotional behavior, humility, legal, financial, marriage. So that was the qiyas. Okay. Now I would say a friendly discussion, because he's always a nice guy. His name is Andrew March, and I hadn't talked to him in a long time, but he does post on Muslim pages every once in a while. So I'm going to cover this little discussion. Okay. And how it eventually led to, and I think we agree. I don't know who liked my replies, maybe him, maybe not. I don't know, but I think we ended up in an agreement. So he answered back and he said, people claim barbers are omnipotent. So he's basically showing, Edif, can you look up who is Andrew March? Because I know he's an academic. He's got good relations with a lot of Muslims. He's definitely not one of those who sort of mocks Muslims and has got some kind of axe to grind.
This Andrew March?
No, just look up Andrew March Islamic Studies. I think maybe he's SOAS. In any event, he says people claim barbers are omnipotent. So he found what would seem to be on the outset a hole, a kink in the armor of in the analogy. Okay. Is the whole analogy false because of a difference between 1 and 2? The two items being analogized. That's the whole argument. That's what I just talked about and said that by definition, all analogized items must be different. And the analogy is a link of similarity between them. Okay. Elif found his CVs online, a very long and successful CV. He's from UMass Amherst. And by the way, I did invite him to come on, but he's probably doing something because it was last minute. Genealogies of sovereignty in Islamic political theology. What is comparative political theory? Keep going. What can the Islamic past teach us about the secular modernity? Is there a right to polygamy, marriage, equality, and subsidizing families and liberal public justification? Islamic legal theory. Religious pluralism. Is modern religious freedom sufficient for Sharia maqasid of preserving religion? Hifz-ud-din. So Yale is producing a lot of his stuff. So he is, you know, a very successful academic. Okay. So now let's look at the discussion here. So I responded, the analogy is for the existence of God, not the other attributes. So the existence is the scope. And that's why when you give an analogy, you got to give the scope, right? What's the scope of the analogy? Just as I said, hey, what's a pear? You say, well, it's kind of like an apple in its texture and in its form. Like it has a skin that you can eat, unlike a banana. Skin you can't eat, unlike a pineapple, unlike a mango, unlike a kiwi. Okay. I wouldn't say it's like a peach. Peach has a pit in the middle, then the skin is fuzzy. Pears and apples have shiny skins and seeds, not pits. I haven't eaten a pear in a long time. Do they have pits or seeds?
I think they have seeds, right?
Yeah, seeds. So in many ways, they're closest to the apple, but obviously it's not an apple. So how's it different from the apple? Okay. Color, shape. I mean, apples could be green like pears, but in any event, so his argument was that the existence of God is his attributes. Okay. What is the thing that is supposed to exist is defined by the sifat. Yes, that's true. But we are discussing one sifa. Okay. So a single argument is not needed to answer for all these sifat. What I'm saying, each sifa, each attribute of God will have its own separate argument. Okay. Or analogy, you can say. Okay. So I agreed with him that the correct form would require argument for a being first. Okay. And the remaining sifat. All right. So he did say he'd come on, but he is giving an exam. Summer classes, I guess. So I'll tell him I'd love to have you on before classes start up again. And so it got me, the whole discussion went up to forget this analogy, the nature of qiyas, the nature of analogy in the first place. And interestingly, what you find is that the hard part of analogy is to ever find an absolute analogy. It can't exist. It would be the thing, right? So we don't need an analogy. We would say, what is a pear? I would say, son, it's that one right there. Okay. I wouldn't need to say it's like an apple, kind of like that. Okay. So everything I say about the analogy between the apple and the pear is true because I've limited the scope. Okay. So, and that's a whole discussion in logic, in mantiq, is the nature of the analogy. And the argument is against the nature of the absolute or the full or total analogy. That doesn't exist because it would be the thing. There must be differences between the two things. Anyway, I got that. We've covered that. Let's take some other examples. Mustafa Azam, he says a person might argue that natural evils, okay, that this argument may answer moral evils but not natural evils. Okay. So let's discuss that. What's the difference? Like a moral evil is like a murderer, someone willingly, knowingly doing evil. What's a natural evil? Like an earthquake, like a storm. So how can a merciful God exist if there are storms and earthquakes and forest fires and all these humans are harmed by them? So therefore, perfect God doesn't exist, and therefore I'm an atheist. That's the argument. So I'm saying that as transmission, not because you can transmitting kufr is not kufr. But in any event, what's the answer to that? And the answer to that is that premise number one for evil at all is that God owes you the perfect life in the first place. That the existence of a God entails him owing you heaven on earth. That's argument number one. You haven't proven that. You haven't argued for that. And no religion says that. Number two, natural to say that goodness is negated by natural evils has a premise. The premise to that is we human beings are the center of the natural world, of the existing. We are the center, and everything really needs to revolve around us. Well, if you go to actual atheists, what their argument is that we're no different than a dead bug. You're just more chemical reactions, more complex chemical reactions and atoms than a dead ant. Essentially, there's no difference. You're just more complicated version. Because a forest fire is very good for the forest and very good for the long term of the soil, which has become used up. The soil's no longer any good. And there are too many trees sucking up the water. That's why it got dry in the first place. Everything's dry. So the forest fire produces ash from these trees and leaves, and that provides nutrients for the soil. It decreases the amount of trees sucking water from the earth. Forest fires, if they didn't exist, you would end up with deserts. Right? Those places would be completely desolate, and nothing could grow there anymore. You'd completely dry up the water. The soil would be terrible. Elif, why don't you look it up? Your benefits of forest fires. Forest fires are amazing for the forest. It's definitely not good for the people around it. They're National Geographic's the ecological benefits. Let's go to the first paragraph. Let's read the first paragraph. The summary. Wildfires are destructive forces. To whom? To us, which we think. Okay. Yeah, they could be caused by lightning. They could be caused by human accidents. But when it's natural by itself, it is actually a regenerating force. It's basically like the forest getting a nice, good haircut. So now you have less trees soaking up water. Now you have the ash comes down and actually is very beneficial to the soil. Okay. So much so, go down to the second paragraph, that wildfires are now planned by people and regulated and prescribed and controlled burns, okay? Because they know how beneficial they are. So instead of waiting till the whole forest is exhausted and then it becomes so dry that the heat lights it up, they just do it themselves now from how beneficial they are. Okay. Earthquakes. Look up the benefit of earthquakes to the earth, ya alifu. Earthquakes, we look around at the destruction. But the earthquake is extremely has many positive effects. Earthquakes are release internal planetary heat, recycles the earth crust, creates diverse landscapes, releases pressure of built-up tectonic stress, okay? Brings buried minerals out to the surface, fractures underground rock to recharge subterranean aquifers. You understand any of that?
Yeah. You know aquifers?
No, I'm not. That part got a bit technical for me. I mean, I could learn it, but
inside the earth.
Aquifers is what?
It's like water trapped deep in the earth, in imagine like a pond or something, but underground. Underground.
So it releases water. Yeah. So why don't they just say releases water, right? Keep going. I'm a big fan of just talk, but I know this is a technical. It's a technical website that we're reading here from. This is the Atlantic International University, whatever. Okay. Positive effects of earthquakes on nature. So when somebody says, "Explain to me," okay, why would a beneficent God, a good God, a loving God, allow earthquakes to happen? Hold on a second. First, you prove to me that the human being is the sole center of the universe and everything must revolve solely around him. from your previous standpoint, from your atheist standpoint. In fact, from your atheist standpoint, you don't say that actually. So therefore, that God has earthquakes, that doesn't stand. So even for us as Muslims, yes, Allah has created the human being, but he created him to be tested. He ennobled the human being, but to be tested, and he's not greater than the earth. Right? Your needs do not outweigh the earth's needs. When the earth needs and nature needs to have a storm, release wind, release air, rain, have earthquakes, release pressure, I meant to say, then the comfort of a single human being is not going to outweigh that. There's nowhere in any scripture says this. Oh, human being, we are going to pamper you, so even if the earth has to rot. No. So the answer to Mudassir Akbar Khan, I think that was him or Mustafa Azam, somebody made this comment. Yes, it was Mudassir Akbar Khan, and I made that comment for him. Okay, and answered that comment there. Couple other. All right, here's what you call a non sequitur. I'd get the official definition for a non sequitur.
Non sequitur, I think, right?
Non sequitur, sorry. What did I say?
Actually,
non sequitur. You're right. I said non sequitur because I only read it. I never talked about it. All right. I've only read it. It's a remark that has nothing to do with the subject, right? And I get a lot of these on my Facebook page. You know what? I don't think I'm shadow banned. I'm like redirected. I'm like redirected to absolute randoms because I put a post up on Facebook, which I hardly ever use, but sometimes I do. And absolute randoms coming in as if they don't know this is a Muslim page. And this is Islamic content. So this guy says, religions take much more money than they give. Okay. And he says that the temples are filled with riches from those seeking hope. They give charity and hope, but you just are getting rich. All right. And keeping the treasures in your temples. What are you talking about? So I said, look, that's assuming charity is kept in the temples and not distributed to the poor. If so, our mosque would be much fancier than it is right now. So that's what we call a non sequitur. Something that has a statement, remark, or conclusion does not follow logically or reasonably from what came before it. Nothing at all. Okay. All right, let's take another comment from Z Khan. But atheists argue that religions don't prosper more in this world, all right, than secular people. So compare secular Scandinavia with religious Africa. All right. Whoa, what? Why would you compare those two, right? In this century. So how is that a comparison? So I think people, it's good that they're on social media because they say illogical things. I could say that too. I could say illogical things too by accident. They say false things that are just completely false. I can fall into that too. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody or anyone's better than anybody, but it's good to be on social media in that people correct each other. So what you're saying here, this idea that religions don't prosper more than secular people, look at Norway and look at, let's say, Ghana. Ghana's half Christian and half Muslim. They're all pretty religious. Wait, what? How is that a comparison at all? So do you know that how do you even know how many believers are in Norway? Right? And Ghana, you think its constitution is not secular? It's probably a regular British constitution. What if then I bring you Iraq, Baghdad in the 3rd Islamic century and compared that to Scandinavia? You want to go live in Scandinavia in the 3rd Islamic century in the 900s of the Common Era? You want to go live there? Right? Whatever religion they were at the time. Probably half Christian and half Norse. All right, let's go to...
But they're not even united. They're like tribes.
There were tribes. And I don't know how much was Christian, how much was Norse. All right. there probably isn't, even until the modern times, any atheist nations. Every nation was either pagan, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, right, or pagan. So therefore, where does your argument stand now? Where does your argument stand for Romania? If you're going to say that this is a secular former Soviet nations, mostly atheists and secular, so let's go to those countries. Why don't you compare them today to the Gulf? Right? Arabs who have more money than they know what to do with. So again, it's a comparison that it's really at the level of sukh, foolishness, meaninglessness, and pointlessness. Okay. So that argument, and that was not made by Z Khan. Z Khan was just saying that's what people say. Okay. When, for example, the tsunami happened, the most devastated area was the most religious place in Indonesia. Okay. So is that the point of analogy now? Are we now gonna, what would it achieve, that analogy? That statement. In virtually every community, the most religious people / country is the poor one. Okay, so what about Mansa Musa? What about Suleiman al-Qanuni, so-called Suleiman the Magnificent? What about Zayed, Sultan Zayed of the Emirates, the father of the current one? Very religious man, very rich man. Yeah. You want to go on with this? Right? What about the Vatican? You guys, we can go on with this. You want to talk about Israel and Jews? Aren't they allegedly religious? They got tons of money. Should we go on with this? هذا شيء عجيب. Arguments. And, so that's why I think it's actually good that people talk online, because you can now discuss these and sort of pick them apart in a sense. Let's see what Shia says. Why does any non-believer even expect heaven? No illness, no misery, no death, no boredom, no suffering, no cruelty, no evil. Why would you even expect it? That's a great answer. If you don't believe in a creator, you get what you get and you don't get upset. But naturally, the denier is dissatisfied because the actual issue probably stems from an entitled belief that if there is a God, he owes me. That's exactly it. And this is why this is an argument always for the rich. Tends to be for the well-off. If there is a God, he owes me. Okay. And he has to make heaven on earth. Divine justice is not everyone gets the same thing. Divine mercy is that he doesn't give you everything what you want. Okay. Conversely, he says, why should any believer, a Muslim specifically, have to prove why it isn't like heaven in the dunya? Right? When Allah tells us in the Quran, there's a source of our knowledge of God, that this is mata'ul ghurur. It's just illusions. It's just a test. It's a place of testing. Okay. All right. It's a place of testing. So that was a good answer. All right, let's go and read a little. You want to put the actually, you know what, Ed, do you have access to my Facebook?
I think I do.
Okay, put the Zoom link there. We will take a few questions. If it's a non-Muslim who's sort of questioning Islam, we could talk a little bit. If you're just a Muslim who had a question, then I would kindly, politely ask you to make it quick. Okay. Let's take another example of false logic. A man once said to me, what you're teaching, if it's true, why don't they teach it in Mecca? Right? Why don't they have the different madhabs in Mecca? Why don't they have dhikr night in Mecca if it's true? So I said to him, okay, by that logic, you're saying that whatever happens in Mecca is the truth then, correct? He said, yeah, it's Mecca. Allah preserves it. I think some people have not ever read a history book in their life. Okay. And I said to him, so what if I were to give you the proof that what is taught in Mecca and in the khutbahs in Medina today, without passing a judgment on it, is very different from what was taught 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Okay. What would happen then? Does the aqidah of Allah change? Yeah, furu'a change. Ijtihadat can differ. So, you'd have to show me that. Are you serious? Until he had to admit then, your logic isn't right. Okay. Let's go to آيات المباهلة في القرآن. In the comment. In the live stream. Yeah. Let's go to Surah Ali Imran and read Ayat al-Mubahala. Tafsir of Ayat al-Mubahala. It comes in Surah Ali Imran, where the Muslims and the Christians are discussing. And you could just say in the comment there, say if you have any comments or questions, hop on. You can also go to the barber shop or the Barber Analogy and put that there too. Okay. Let's go to start with the tafsir here. ويكلم الناس في المهدي أي صغيرا قبل أوان الكلام كما ذكره في سورة مريم قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب. So Allah says in the Quran that Prophet Isa speaks to people in the cradle. Of course, that's one of Jesus's miracles. And is it hard for Allah to make anyone speak? I don't know. Okay. حكي عن مجاهد قالت مريم كنت إذا خلوت أنا وعيسى حدثني وحدثته. Mujahid says that when I was alone with Isa, we used to speak. Subhanallah. He didn't just speak once. Prophet Isa ibn Maryam. He did not just speak once. He spoke many times, all the time with Sayyidah Maryam. And by the way, I have a correction. You know, like New York Times correction piece. I had said, يلعن آخر هذه الأمة أولها. That i'rab is wrong. I made a mistake. It's يلعن آخر هذه الأمة أولها بفتح اللام لا بضم اللام لأنه مفعول به. So I watched one of the clips. The brother saying the mic is choppy. Testing. How is it now? Can't hear anything he's saying. Cave. Try now. Testing. Comments, could you please tell me if it's fixed or not fixed? Testing. We'll just wait until someone answers. Can't hear anything, says Ace. Yeah. That's better, says Peace on Earth. Okay, good. Better now. Thank you. Okay. So let me repeat. I had made a mistake in i'rab and said, يلعن, the hadith, يلعن آخر هذه الأمة أولها. That's a mistake. The answer is أولها. مفعول به منصوب بالفتحة. So that was a slip of the tongue and an error that I'm correcting now. Now we're reading about the Prophet Isa ibn Maryam did not simply speak to Maryam alayha salam one time and say, Inni Abdullah, atani al-kitab wa ja'alani nabiyya. La. Surah Maryam, قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب. No, he spoke to Maryam all the time. كنت إذا خلوت أنا وعيسى حدثني وحدثته. Maryam says, when I was alone with Isa, I speak to him and he speaks to me. فإذا شغلني عنه إنسان سبح في بطني وأنا أسمع قوله. If I got busy talking to somebody else, I would hear he would make tasbih and I would hear his tasbih. قال مقاتل يعني إذا اجتمعت قوته قبل أن يرفع إلى السماء. وقال الحسين ابن الفضل وكهلا بعد نزوله من السماء. So what does كهلا mean? يعني إذا اجتمعت قوته قبل أن يرفع إلى السماء. كهلا means after birth. Okay. When he got his strength and he was able to become a young man. But why is that tafsir not really number one, that's not the meaning of kahla. Number two, why would that be a miracle? Why would it be everyone else speaks at that time? No. The correct one is from Al-Husayn ibn al-Fadl, meaning بعد نزوله من السماء, when he returns from the heavens. This is the proof that he will return after his rising into the heavens. وقيل أخبرها الله أنه يبقى حتى يكتهل. وكلامه بعد الكهولة إخباره عن الأشياء المعجزة. وقيل وكهلا نبيا بشرها بنبوة عيسى. So one saying is he speaks to the people in a cradle and is a prophet. No, that doesn't match up. Okay, because this is one of the mafa'id. ويكلم الناس في المهد وكهلا. Okay? He speaks to the people in the cradle and as an old man. هذا من المفاعيل. And so why is the point of saying that he will speak to people as an old man when that's not a miracle either? Because all old men speak. The answer is it is a miracle because it is informing Sayyida Maryam that he is returning. Okay. It's ikhbar. It is an information for Sayyida Maryam that he's going to return. That's the wedge or the facet that is a miracle. That's why it's important to mention this. Okay. So سيبلغ يبقى حتى يكتهل. He will return back to the earth and become what we would call a kahl, an old man. Look up the exact meaning of kahl, ya alifu. Yeah. وكلامه في المهد معجزة وفي الكهولة دعوة. قال مجاهد وكهلا أي حليما. والعرب تمدح الكهولة لأنها الحالة الوسطى في احتناك السن واستحكام العقل وجودة الرأي والتجربة. So al-kuhula, why do they love kuhula, the Arabs? They say it's a nice thing because it is that middle point where you have experience, but your intellect remains 100% sound. Okay. So that means that it's maybe we could say 50s, 60s, because your intellect is fully there and you have tajriba, you have wisdom, you have hilm, you're patient. Patience and experience come together. Okay? Patience and you have patience because you've seen the ups and downs of life and things don't shock you anymore. وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ, and he is from the righteous. So therefore, kahla does not mean nabi. What would be the point to repeat وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ? Okay. قالت ربي يا سيدي تقوله لجبريل تقول لله عز وجل. وقيل تقول قالت ربي أن يكون لي ولد ولم يمسسني بشر. How can I have a child and no man has touched me? ولم يصبني رجل, no man has come to me. One of the wisdoms of Sayyidah Maryam, she lives in the temple. She lives in public. She literally lives in a public place. If a woman becomes pregnant from her boyfriend, she doesn't get pregnant on the first date, right? She becomes pregnant after a while, right? After a couple meetings. So therefore, if that was the case, we would see a man back and forth go into her room. Right or wrong? They would have seen it. The temple, how big is it? It's not so huge. Any man going into Maryam's room, if she became pregnant from a man, we would have seen this man, they would have seen this man coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. So you can't hide an affair in the temple when you live in the temple. All right. If she was raped, she would have screamed, right? There'd be screaming. There'd be blood because she was a virgin, correct? So there'd be blood on a sheet. She'd be able to say, here it is. I was raped. Okay. قالت ذلك تعجبا إذ لم تكن جرت العادة بأن يولد ولد لا أب له. Did she say that because she didn't believe in Allah? How can I have a child when no man has touched me? No, it's ta'ajjub. Because even if Allah tells you something directly as through Angel Gabriel, and Mary knows Gabriel, Mary is receiving miracles all the time, nonstop. So miracles to her are, she is mutamakkina in this world of karamat. She doesn't get fooled. Shaitan came, oh, I thought it was Jibreel. No. She has tamakkun. But nonetheless, when somebody tells you, even at that level of strength of transmission and tamkeen, that the opposite of the ada will occur. The hukum adi is natural law, which is different from rational law, which is different from religious law. Natural law is the norms. We should call it natural norms. The norms by which Allah created the world. There's three measurements. The norms by which Allah measured the world. Then what is possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is, rational. What is rationally possible? And then what is religiously transmitted? Those are the three measurements we make. So natural norms is the weakest one. Natural norms. What goes up must come down. If you want to have a baby, you have to have a man and a woman that both can cohabit and reproduce. Natural norms. If you want to lose weight, you have to eat less food. If you want to gain weight, you have to eat more food. If you're tired, you need to sleep to rest. It's called natural law. If you pour water on something, it's going to get wet. It's called natural law. Rational law has to do with contradictions. Square triangles, they do not exist. Only the words exist. The word square and triangle, that exists. The fact that you said it exists. But in reality, a square triangle cannot exist because it's a contradictory of terms. It's like saying 3 equals 4. No, it doesn't. It will never equal 4. 3 will never equal 4. Okay? The qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we talk about God's power, is referring to what is possible to happen, not contradictions in terms. That's number 2. Number 3, what is religious law? By religiously, we mean, did Allah say it will happen or no? Did Allah say that this will happen or no? So therefore, is it rationally possible for Abu Lahab to go to heaven? Yes, it's rationally possible. Is it religiously possible? No, because Allah told us he's in the hellfire. Is it rationally possible for Iblis to be a good believer? Yeah, he already was a good believer. Or he was behaving well, at least we can say. But it is no longer religiously possible because Allah informed us that he is Rajim. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكَ لَعْنَتِي إِلَى يَوْمِ الدِّينِ. And there's no action after Yawm ad-Din, until the day of judgment. The curse of God is on Iblis until the day of judgment. Forever, yani. Okay? So that's what we understand now, that there are 3 measurements. What's the norm in life? What's a contradiction in terms that can never exist? Number 3, what did Allah say? That's why the rule on a Karama, Karamat of awliya, is that you must believe it's possible, but you only have to believe that which is transmitted to you through sources you trust. And if it was through mass transmission, then you have to believe it, because then you're basically saying all of these people, this Jam Ghafir, they're all ignorant, fools, lied to, they're all conspiring to a lie, etc. Okay. قال كذلك الله كذلك الله يخلق ما يشاء إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. Sayyidina Jibreel said, you're shocked by the suspension of natural law. Let me just remind you that the actual reality of existence is whatever Allah wants it to be. Okay. I mean, just think about today. The fact that we're streaming, what actually is happening when we're streaming? Elif comes in and he pushes buttons. That's it. It's insane to think about. He literally, with his finger, with one finger, boom, 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 we're streaming. Yeah. And what's in front of us? A hunk of metal. If I took this camera apart, I took the screen apart, and I went to sell it for parts, I probably wouldn't even. This stick, this in its finished form, will bring me more value, resale, than the individual pieces of copper and metal and plastic. It's amazing how, and this, it will continue. And there are worlds and knowledges and asbab we cannot even fathom that have existed in probably in this world in the past that are gone now. And who knows, however long life exists in the future, that all this knowledge may be gone someday. I'd love to see someone use their imagination and make a movie that's set in the year 4000. We're in 2026. I want the year 4000. No, I didn't read Fahrenheit 451. What's it about? Yeah. That's exactly, I wanted someone to make a premise, but here's the problem is that water bottles, cameras, all these plastics don't disappear. So they'll be on the earth, but what would people theorize they were? There'll be cars, there'll be hunks of whatever, right? And people will discover them. There could possibly be whole cities, skyscrapers, that covered by sand or something, right? You can imagine sea rises, earthquakes happen, but later on, entire cities are buried under the earth. Just imagine, like, Manhattan is discovered through digging, and they dig and dig and dig and dig, and they literally dig out a skyscraper. Just imagine that. And they go all down that, right? So what would they theorize that was here? If they've never had electricity, never seen, what would they theorize about us? They would definitely say, you know, like, when we don't know anything, put it on demons. Demons built this, aliens built this, right? Peace in the East is saying that's what Fahrenheit 451 is basically, and Planet of the Apes. Yeah. Okay. So think about that. Lisa is saying, can you speak about how to know the difference between OCD and ihsan? Other people will tell you. Your family will tell you. People who you live with will tell you. You're gone too far. Okay. But anyway, back to this subject here. So things exist because that's how Allah wants them to exist. And he creates a asbab for that. Right? And some people, they have this jumud aqli. They got this jumud that they imagine only what we know and see and experience is what exists. Not the case at all. You have to open your mind up. A guy once said to me, there cannot have ever been giants in the past, bigger people, because the bone structure wouldn't have held up. So I said, well, what if the bones were different? It's like the easiest answer. Who's to say the bones are stuck to being the way they are now? That's naturalistic thinking, that actual reality is only limited to what we've seen right now. Such a limited thinking. Let's continue reading the tafsir. You have someone in the waiting room for a question? And who are they, and have they verified their existence? Okay. All right. So what else did Allah says? وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابِ. He will teach him the book. What is the meaning of the book? Meaning that all the revelation, okay, all the revelation that came between Moses and Jesus is called in the Sharia, in the Quran, referred to as the book. Okay. It's referred to as the book. And so Allah will teach him the book. So why is that important? Because he needs to be able to show the people that he's a prophet. Up until Prophet Isa ibn Maryam, how did a prophet show Bani Israel he's a prophet? Okay, it's in the Quran that he'll put down an offering and the fire will eat that offering, will burn that offering. That's the proof. So if you remember, which prophet was it? Ilyas? Was it Ilyas? Who's the prophet we mentioned in the stories of the prophets? Angels and demons, I think. Prophets, what do we call it? We call it prophets and demons. So the prophet who fought Jezebel, was it not Jeremiah? Elijah. So he then, his challenge, he puts the challenge. And the challenge is that you guys all your pagan priests, worshippers of the devil, worshippers of this jinn. Of course, every idol is a jinn. It symbolizes a jinn. And they worship that. Okay. And because that jinn has power, is unseen. So they got fooled and duped into worshiping it. Also, those jinn used to go and know the future. It's in Surah Al-Jinn. So the kings really wanted that information. The rich paid a heavy price for that information, and the price was make worshiping of me the official religion of the people. So that's what they did. 400 pagan priests came, put a slaughter on an altar, and prayed and prayed and prayed, but Allah trapped their jinn at that time, and that jinn couldn't do anything. He blocked that jinn from burning the offering. So that jinn is now limited. Why would you worship something limited? Okay. So then Elijah goes there and starts mocking them, making fun of them. Allah is the one who told Elijah to set up this competition, this challenge, I mean. Okay. And all the people are watching. And they set it at the bottom of a valley so all the people could watch. Okay. Or sorry, maybe the opposite. Maybe it was at the top of a mountain so all the people watch. But I can't remember. Either way, I think it was the top of a subtle area so everyone could see. Either way, that's irrelevant. And he starts mocking them. And he says, I'll give you another day. Go and worship more. Because he knows Allah has commanded Jibreel to confound that jinn, and to stop that jinn. Okay. So he's take another day, take a third day. Now, when it came time, and he was informed, it will burn. Your offering will burn. Informed from Allah. So now he doubled it. Now he said, not only I'm going to slaughter this, we're going to slaughter a bull. We're going to put the offering on this big stone mantle, so everyone could see. Everyone will pour water with their own two hands. And then after everyone pitched in, put water on it. Because how is it going to burn if it's wet? He said, and I will add buckets upon buckets. This thing was drenched. The whole stone altar was drenched with water. The entire flesh of the animal, the offering, was drenched. There's water all around. How could a fire come into this place? Then he stood in front of everybody, gave a long speech about the power of God, about the falsehood of these devils and jinn and idols. And all of you have to return back to God. And oh, Allah, if I'm speaking the truth, then burn this offering. And the thing went in such flames that the altar collapsed. The fire was so hot that people had to move back and the altar collapsed. How does stone collapse? Stone is like supposed to absorb heat. It's supposed to coexist with fire. Every fireplace is made of stone. The stone itself, it was so hot, the stone itself was ruined. And despite all this, they still didn't believe. And Jezebel's reaction to this was to send a crew of hitmen, the military, to kill Elijah. If I'm correct that it was Elijah, it was. You can look up who went back and forth with Jezebel, ya Arifu, or the viewers. It's Elijah, right? Sayyidina Ilyas, one of the greatest NBF of Bani Israel and greatest NBF period, Sayyidina Ilyas. And his assistant was Ilyasa. Ilyas wal Yasa. Okay. Elijah and Elisha. So she sent the military and he fled with Elisha and he gave him the khirqa. He said, you're in charge now. You are in charge of the dawah now. And he disappeared. He died. Some say he was marfu' ila sama, just like Isa ibn Maryam, but his soul was taken there. Look up what the fate of Sayyidina Ilyas. So that's how prophets used to prove themselves in the past. Up until Prophet Isa ibn Maryam. How did Prophet Isa ibn Maryam prove himself? By speaking as a baby and then going and as a youth, debating the doctors of the law, showing them their errors, showing the rabbis your mistakes, asking them questions they couldn't answer. What a time to have seen and witnessed. That's why it's so important. It says, وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابِ, to teach him the book. Okay, what else? ذَلِكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهِ إِلَيْكَ. O Prophet, these are some of the things of the unseen that we teach to you, or we reveal to you. Okay. And Allah says He's رَسُولًا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. كان رسولا في حال الصبا. قيل إنما كان رسولا بعد البلوغ. Okay. Can we say that a prophet was a prophet, or was not a prophet, then became a prophet? Or can we say that a messenger was a messenger, was not a messenger, then became a messenger? The answer is that the difference between Nabi and Rasul is in the mission, not in the essence. In essence, Nabi and Rasul are one and the same in their infallibility. They will never disobey Allah intentionally, knowingly. Yes, their bodies can make mistakes. They can be coerced. They can forget. All that is possible. Okay. So, but a Rasul is someone sent to pagans, whereas a Nabi is not. Therefore, Adam is a Nabi, not a Rasul. Why? Because he's not worthy of a stature? No, because there were no pagans on the earth. Simple as that. Nuh is the first Rasul. He's the first prophet to be sent to a pagan world. Okay. And so the question here is, when somebody says he was a Rasul as a child, no, he wasn't. They don't mean that he wasn't a prophet. They mean his mission hadn't begun yet. And so the debate is, when did his mission begin? His mission began as a child or after Bulugh. You can debate that. But he was when you're a prophet from the start. You're not like a flawed sinner and then become a prophet. No. But you could be a Nabi, then you are sent in your mission. So that before this, he wasn't sent. So he's not Rasul yet. Then he was sent. And of course, if we're talking about absolutely, yes, in the divine knowledge, then absolutely he's a Rasul, always. But in terms of action is the question. So was he sent to start giving proofs as a child? Some said yes, some said no. Why did they say yes? Because he spoke. And he gave miracles to the people. But the question is, yes, that does not necessarily make him Rasul. Did he call them to the truth? Because we know the Jurayj's baby spoke, right? The bastard child that defended Jurayj spoke. Speaking doesn't make you Rasul. It's when you call the people. Okay? When you call the people. That's the nature of the commandment and becoming a Rasul. Lisa is saying, are you talking about Elijah, Elisha, Jezebel, and some people worshiping idols? Yes, all idolatry is jinn worship. All of it. And the idol is just set up because the jinn can't be seen. And the priests are those who interact with the jinn. And in the past, and then they become the translators between the jinn and the people. And in the past, the jinn, as the Quran says, had access to the future, to knowledge of the future. They would come back with that information and tell their weirdo priests who connected themselves to the jinn. Okay? They learn how to connect to the jinn. We learn how to connect to the internet, right? You can learn how to connect to the jinn. We're not allowed to do that, by the way. They did that. When they learned to connect to the jinn, they went to the highest bidder, naturally, right? Who are the highest bidders? The kings. The kings can pay the most. They can pay the best. Why would I give the secrets out of this information to a regular person? Sell it to the governments. What did the governments say? Okay, name your price? Okay, the price is make the official religion of this place right here, this jinn worship. And jinn worship is always a group. That's why every culture that worships idols, they're never monotheistic, one idol people. It's always a council. Why? Because by nature, by existence, the jinn are not all powerful. And so you go to the Greeks and they have their pantheon. So I don't know what Zeus is in charge of. Then Poseidon is, now everyone is knowledgeable of Greek stuff because of the Odyssey. Okay. Poseidon is in charge of the skies, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the sea, and so on and so forth. Okay. And then these gods, they're just like bullies. They're capricious bullies. Oh, that's your god. A womanizing god. So, Minto Kelp says, Quran talks about a council of gods, the highest council, correct? So all gods, pagan, when I say gods, I mean things that people worship. Doesn't mean it's a true God. And that's why I say the only true God, one worthy of worship, must be omnipotent, therefore must be one. Show me one culture that worshipped one idol. Can't. That idol can't do all the work. That jinn can't do all the work. So and they're all capricious. Oh, you ate his cow because you were starving? Now he's going to totally destroy you for eating my cows. That's in the Odyssey. Are you starving so you ate his cows? So they're capricious, they're mean, they're flaky, they're whimsical, and they're a council. And they're not worthy of worship. There's actually probably, I would say, little difference between a council of jinn and a mafia. A mafia is a group of guys, bully everybody. Okay. And they need something from you. They need your money. Gods oftentimes need human sacrifices. Why? They hate humans. They need you to worship them because that's what Iblis wants. There is no evil jinn unless he's under the dominion of Iblis. What does Iblis want? He hates human beings. He loves to see them dead. He hates their cohabiting and increasing in number. He also wants to be worshipped as Allah is worshipped. So when you're going and worshiping Zeus in the past, or the Egyptians, Ra, and the Hindus, who is it? Ganesh, just like one of Iblis's great grandkids. It's as if you're worshiping Iblis, no difference. Okay. Lisa says, why does Allah refer to himself as we in Arabic? That's the ta'zim. In Arabic, that is ta'zim, aggrandizement. Okay. We do it all the time too. When human beings do it all the time. They aggrandize themselves with the use of the word we. Let's continue reading. ورسول إلى بني إسرائيل كان رسول في حال وسلم أني قد جئتكم بآية علامة من ربكم. The Prophet Isa ibn Maryam is going to come and say, I have signs, many, many signs. Okay. I have a sign. A sign does not mean one only sign, it means many signs. Okay. فلما قال ذلك عيسى عليه السلام لبني إسرائيل قالوا وما هي? They said, all right, what's the sign? All right, then what is the sign? I will create أخلق أي أصور okay. وأقدر لكم من الطين كهيئة الطير. So I'm going to make a bird. Prophet Isa said, they said, what's your sign? Show us, prove to me that you're a prophet. I'm going to make a bird. Okay. And he fashions it from mud in the form of a bird. Okay. Right. فأنفخ فيه, then I will blow in it. فيكون طيرا بإذن الله. And it will be a real bird by the permission of Allah. Okay. وقرأ أهله. And so others said, فيكون طيرا بإذن الله. قرأ الأكثرون بالجمع. Okay. That he created many, many birds, not just one bird. وقرأ أهل المدينة ويعقوب فيكون طائرا على الواحدة ها هنا. Others said it's طائرة, one bird simply. لأنه لم يخلق غير الخفاش. He only made one bird. And can you say that a human being can create something? Yes, you can. It says right here. Sayyidina Isa says, I will create. Doesn't mean from nothing. When a human says, I will create, it means from something. When Allah says He creates, it means from nothing. Just like when we said that Nawawi ibn Hajar as-Suyuti, these are great scholars. Abu Hanifa, these are great scholars. Somebody said, don't ever say great, only Allah is great. No. Allah Himself says about the ram of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. We replaced the Prophet Ismail with a great ram. So therefore, great can be used to describe the creation. Yes. Likewise, alim, very knowledgeable. Likewise, being above, because وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. You can say so-and-so is above so-and-so. And so-and-so is extremely knowledgeable. You can say all these things because the Quran shows us that. وإنما خص الخفاش لأنه أكمل الطير خلقا لأن لها ثديا وأسنانا. Can you look up the khafash? Because this is describing the type of bird that Sayyidina Isa ibn Maryam made. Okay. It has a chest, it has teeth, it menstruates. How is it a bird then? Right? Look up the khafash. هذا شيء عجيب. Right? Oh, a bat. Ajib. Okay. Okay, so how do we know that this wasn't magic or this wasn't a trick? He says here, Wahab says, كَانَ يَطِيرُ مَا دَامَ النَّاسُ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْهِ. It would fly as long as people were looking at it. فَإِذَا غَابَ عَنْ أَعْيُنِهِمْ سَقَطَ مَيِّتًا. If he passed their eyesight, he would just drop dead. لِيَتَمَيَّزْ فِعْلَ الْخَلْقِ مِنْ فِعْلِ الْخَالِقِ. To separate between the making of the creator and the making of the creation. So that everybody emphasizes that kamal lillah. Bring Tawsif on. We have a question. Tawsif, come on with your comment, inshallah. And let us also know where you are, where you're from, and everything while we continue to read here. وَأُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَهَ وَالْأَبْرَصِ. What else did Prophet Isa ibn Maryam do? He cures them. Can you say that a human being cured me? Yes, you can. What with the knowledge that he is a means. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the angel of death and says the angel of death takes your souls. But does he actually take your soul? Yes, as a means. تسببا. أشفيها وأصححهما أشفيهما واختلفوا في الأكمة. قال ابن عباس the أكمة هو الذي ولد أعمى. وقال الحسن والسدي هو الأعمى. Is the أكمة born blind or became blind? Okay, they differed upon that. ويبصر بالنهار ولا يبصر بالليل. And others said he's partially blind. Can see at night but not in the day. والأبرص. الأبرص إنما خص هذين لأنهما داءان عياءان وكان الغالب في زمن عيسى عليه السلام الطب. So what is the أبرص? The أبرص is the skin disease. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken here, right? Why did he choose those? Because those are obvious. When you see somebody, clearly you can see he's blind. And you can see he has a skin disease. Okay. Because you say someone, oh, he's got his sickness. Like here's a good test. You know all these frauds and all these fakes, and even we had the Sufi fake from England, Birmingham. He went to Birmingham, and Sheikh Asrar challenged him. When they cure the sick, do they cure someone whose sickness we can all see in front of us, or do they cure someone? Let's say, oh, my leg doesn't work. Yeah, but we don't see that, right? We can't see inside your leg. It's, oh, it's healed, and you're walking now. And all the fake healers out there, they always heal a disease. The source of the disease we can't see, right? So how do I know actually your spine doesn't work? You're telling me, that's it. But Allah says that what Prophet Isa cured were visible sicknesses. You can see a person's eyes covered over. You can see a person's skin has all sorts of leprosy all over it. Okay? So that's why Allah says here, he mentioned those two in specific to show that he cured things everybody could see. And the frauds, they cure things nobody can see. Okay? So Wahab says وربما اجتمع على عيسى عليه السلام من المرضى في اليوم الواحد 50,000 من أطاق منهم أن يبلغه بلغه ومن لم يطق مشى إليه عيسى وكان يداويهم بالدعاء على شرط الإيمان. And he says here that the amount of people that Prophet Isa healed on certain days was up to 50,000. They would come to him and he would make dua and they would be healed on the condition they have belief in him. That's the condition. And if they couldn't reach him, he went to them. Tosif speaketh. He's frozen. Tosif, you got frozen up. I thought he was really paying attention. And he's like, oh man, he's like not even blinking. No, but Tosif, just unfreeze yourself and then come back. And we'll continue. وأحيي الموتى بإذن الله. Ibn Abbas says, قد أحيا 4 أنفس عازر وابن العجوز وابنة العاشر وسام ibn Nuh. Ibn Abbas said, Prophet Isa revived 4 people. Again, our sponsors today at Chicago Fragrance and Dean Arts. You can interchange between those two. فأما عازر, who is عازر, فكان صديقا له أرسلت أخته إلى عيسى عليه السلام أن أخاك عازر يموت وكان بينه وبينه مسيرة 3 أيام فأتاه هو وأصحابه فوجدوه قد مات. Azir is a friend of Prophet Isa. His sister wrote him a note and said to him, or sent him a message. Doesn't say wrote a note, but أرسلت إلى Isa sent him a message. Your friend is about to die. They all traveled to him. It's a 3-day journey, but he had died. قد مات منذ 3 أيام. He had died 3 days before they arrived. He said to the sister, انطلقي بنا إلى قبره. Let's go to his grave. فانطلقت معهم إلى قبره. They went to his grave. فدعا الله تعالى فقام عازر وودكه يقطر فخرج من قبره. So he made dua and he commanded him to rise and he came out. Okay. وَبَقِيَ وَوُلِدَ لَهُ. And he remained and he had children. So he was revived. So this person remained and he continued to live. This is his friend Azir. وَأَمَّا ibn al-Ajuz. Who is Ibn al-Ajuz? Second person that Prophet Isa revives. فإنه مر به ميتا على عيسى عليه السلام على سرير يحمل. He was passing by on a it says here a bed, but a gurney. Isn't the word a gurney? We carried a person on. Is on a gurney. Aren't you EMT? But you haven't carried a stretcher. Let's call it a stretcher. And he was dead. فدعا الله عيسى فجلس على سريره. Sayyidina Isa made a dua, so he sat up in the stretcher. ونزل على أعناق الرجال ولبس ثيابه. He got off, leaning on the shoulders of the people, put his clothes on. وحمل السرير على عنقه, and carried the stretcher himself, and returned. ورجع إلى أهله فبقي وولد له. He took the stretcher, carried it, went home to his family, and lived with them the rest of his life, and he had children from them. What about Ibn al-Ashir? Oh, sorry, Ibnat al-Ashir. فكان والدها رجلا يأخذ العشور. Okay. ماتت له بنت بالأمس فدعا الله عز وجل باسمه الأعظم فأحياها الله تعالى وبقيت بعد ذلك زمنا وولد لها. So the son of the tax collector, the daughter of the tax collector, she died. Okay. The tax collector's daughter died. Prophet Isa bin Maryam made dua with the Ism al-A'zam. She lived, and then she lived a long time after that, zamanan. All right. And she had children. وولد لها. وأما سام ibn Nuh عليه السلام. As for Sam, son of Noah, this is why we get the word Shem, because the first human beings, Adam alayhi salam, where did they live? On the earth. They lived at Jabal Qasyun, the mountain of Qasyun behind Damascus. And so after the flood, they went back to where they started. And hence Damascus is the oldest city. And the whole area is called Sham because we say Sham, they say Sam. Sham ibn Nuh settled there, and then the brothers and all the other believers went in different areas. فإن عيسى عليه السلام جاء إلى قبره فدعا بسم الله الأعظم. He made dua with the greatest name of Allah. فخرج من قبره. He came out of his grave. وقد شاب نصف رأسه خوفا من قيام الساعة. And half of his head had become white. He thought it was the day of judgment. Okay. ولم يكونوا يشيبون في ذلك الزمان. As I said earlier, in the prophets and demons, at the time of Nuh, nobody used to get white hair. White hair only came, white hair and wrinkly skin. Because white hair is an earlier indicator of age than skin. Right? Prophet Ibrahim's time is when people started to get white hair, and therefore like wrinkly skin and things like that. So they used to live long lives, full head of dark hair or colored hair, whatever color it was, and perfect skin. So nobody should imagine Noah lived 950 years. So from age 70, he's a wrinkled old man for 9, and then he gets going to go live another 900 years like that. No. فقال قد قامت القيامة. Sam, son of Noah, says, by the way, he's a prophet. He lived 2,000 years before the flood, 2,000 years after. He said, is it day of judgment? لا. Prophet Isa said, no. ولكن دعوتك بسم الله الأعظم. But I called you here by the name of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the great name of Allah, using that. ثم قال له مت. He said, die. قال بشرط أن يعيذني الله من سكرات الموت. He said, okay, now die. Everyone see him? Yes. He said, now die. He said, on one condition. Without the sakarat, the fears of death. because the throes of death, called sakarat al-maut, the scary aspect of dying. And so he died. Sayyidina Isa made the dua for that, and he died. And they had just wanted to see, what does he look like? Wouldn't you want to see what did actually the early people before the flood, what did they look like? Because they were all one people. كان الناس أمة واحدة. Quran says the people were one nation, one people, one skin. Well, what was that skin? Some people say, well, you know, that skin has to have the DNA that produces all the other races. No, it doesn't. It's not at all. Allah just simply kun fake. Well, how did the first skin get there? Right? As Allah says, be and it is. He create Adam in this fashion, create Eve in this fashion. Okay. And then after the flood, from Adam to Noah, they're all one family. They all have the same, basically, we would call a race. They all have the same language. كان الناس أمة واحدة. Look up the tafsir of that. The people were one nation. Okay. Then after the flood, Allah willed now to divide up the people and cut up the earth. And so the earth has been broken up with bodies of water between pieces of land so that they can't, okay, easily travel. Why? Because if people are prone to make mistakes, then they shouldn't all be together so that your mistakes don't affect everybody else. By the way, we're reading from Tafsir al-Baghawi here. Okay. And so after the flood, the earth itself was broken up, and the people were broken up in two ways. Number one way, they woke up one morning all speaking different languages. Noah and Sam speaking the original language. And all the other brothers and believers speaking different languages in small groups. What's the point of staying together if we can't talk? So they all left. Okay. They all separated. Somewhat north, somewhat east, somewhat west, somewhat south. Sometime later now, the birth. Each family that gave birth to a child looked totally different from them. And that's where the different races came from. Nobody needs to say, oh, there needs to be one race that carries all the DNA. No, it doesn't. Where did that original race came from? Allah says, be and it is. So likewise, the new races, Allah says, be and it is. Do you ever wonder, like, what would the original person look like if all these races came from them? If Allah wants to bring, I'm not going to mention any specific races, but if Allah wants to bring the two most polar opposite appearing races from one father from son, he can do so. Okay. What other miracles did Prophet Isa do? Which tafsir are you looking? Kana nasu ummatan. Let's read it. Good. You're like reading my mind here. Kana nasu ummatan wahidatan ala dinin wahid. They were on one religion. Okay. Arada Adam wahdahu. And he meant Adam by himself. Kana ummatan wahidatan, that he was one nation. قال سمي الواحد بلفظ الجمع لأنه أصل النسل وأبو البشر. That الناس كان الناس أمة واحدة mean all people return to one person. ثم خلق الله حواء ونشر منهم الناس. Then he created Eve, and then they had many people. That's one tafsir. وكانوا مسلمين إلى أن قتل قابيل هابيل فاختلفوا. Okay. And then they differed after that. That's one tafsir. كان الناس من وقت آدم إلى مبعث نوح وكان بينما عشرة قرون كلهم على شريعة واحدة من الحق. He says here that there were 10 generations from Adam to Noah, and they were all on the same religion. Either you practiced it or didn't, until eventually, until the time of Noah, the paganism took over. ثم اختلفوا في زمن نوح فبعث الله إليهم نوحا. Then they, in the era of Noah, in that last era, they all became pagans. So Allah sent them Noah. Okay. Now, Al-Kalbi says, كان الناس أمة واحدة. All the people were one people all the way until they were on the ark of Noah. This is what Kalbi says. They were all believers. Then after the death of Noah, they started to differ. Okay. So mostly here, they're referring to the religion of the people. Let's scroll a little bit. Ya Arifu. All right, let's read another one. وما كان الناس إلا أمة واحدة فاختلفوا فبعث الله النبيين وجملتهم 124,000. Oh, he's talking about the prophets and Rasul. Okay. So this tafsir does not mention more than the religion. It doesn't mention their skins and races. Others tafsir will. Go to another tafsir Arifu. It'll probably be in Fakhr Razi, so look it up, inshallah, and let me know when you find it, because you know he's very long. Fakhr Razi, one of the great tafsir mufassirs of one of the great tafsirs, probably also one of the longest for sure. You know what? I need you to change the title for this to the four men, the four people Jesus revived. Abdul Halim Bey says, as far as I know, Eve was Adam's first wife, but also his only wife. Okay. His only wife. Anyone know what we're reading? Yeah, Tafsir al-Baghawi. Now we're going to go to other tafsirs now. So the Christian mythology around Lilith, we don't believe in. That Lilith was actually the first wife. She was so bad that she was banished. So then she went with Satan, cohabited with Satan, and produced giants, lineage of giants. We don't believe in any of that. And anyway, we believe, do we believe that a human and a jinn can cohabit? It's possible, but their kids would not. They're like mules. They can themselves cannot produce a lineage. So there's no lineage around here that starts with Iblis. Their lineage would not even would not reproduce. They would be sterile. Okay, we continue. He has another miracle now. I will inform you. وَنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ. I'll inform you with what you chose to eat and chose to save in your homes. Who knows what you ate last night except your family and the people who are home? السودي says, كان عيسى عليه السلام في الكتاب يحدث الغلمان بما يصنع آباؤهم. And this, what you ate and what you chose not to eat, is just because that's something that happens all the time. But in fact, Prophet Isa was informing people of all sorts of things. Okay. ويقول للغلام انطلق فقد أكل أهلك كذا وكذا ورفعوا لك كذا وكذا. He would say, go home because your parents ate this and they saved this for you. فينطلق الصبي إلى أهله ويبكي عليهم حتى يعطوه ذلك الشيء. And the child would go there and ask for what they had. Prophet Isa said they saved for you. They would say, who told you this? They would say, Isa ibn Maryam. فحبسوا صبيانهم عنه. So they kept their kids from him. Why? The logic of these people is ajib. Such a ajib logic. Why would you keep your kids away from him because this happened? Wouldn't you say, okay, if that's the case, go and become his disciple? لا تلعبوا مع هذا الساحر. He's a magician. Okay, what's the difference between, we said that Jinn could know the future, now a prophet can know the future. If a Hindu guru was to form a bird out of mud and it would fly, naturally you would say it's a Jinn. What's the difference? The difference, huge difference. Huge difference. Just because something is a sign is not the miracle. It's the other things that corroborate it, which is وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابِ. The teaching itself. Religion is not just based on belief in miracles. It's belief based on our minds. We know that there's one God. It's based on inherited, passed on morals and akhlaq. So it's an indicator, but it needs to be corroborated with other things, or supported or supplanted with other things. Did you get that, Alif? Where's the tafsir for that? So go to Baqarah. Are you in Baqarah? كان الناس أمة واحدة? Where's this top of the tafsir there? كان الناس أمة واحدة. So where is, I don't see in blue where he's talking about that.
Yeah.
It could be in the past page. Or go back. There's no way he doesn't talk about it. All right, keep looking and let me know. If not, then go to Ibn Ashur. So they said he's a sahir. If he's a sahir, what's he getting out of this? A sahir always wants something for himself. A sahir is dirty and unclean. The sahara, they divide. They don't bring together. If you want to know if something is funny business or wholesome, ask, does he bring people together or does he separate people? And that's where it was Umayyah ibn Khalaf and Abu Jahl that the only thing that they could possibly get against the message of Islam is that they spread this word, and Allah revealed Surah Al-Qalam about them because of how vicious was their attack, and they said this is a religion that separates father from son. Because it's the separation that Allah does not, that is a necessity. Separation of disbelief, but it's a false separation too. Because when a person becomes Muslim and his family doesn't, it's a separation in beliefs, but not a separation in the family, because in Islam we continue as a convert. Go back to your family. Have good relations with your family. Lower the bar. I see some people with convert names. And I said this to a convert talk I gave to converts in New York. ICNA Revert Connect. Lower the barrier of entry. Make Islam easy for them. Be there often. And if you want people to love Allah, let them love you. You have to be lovable first. If you're not lovable, they're not going to love Allah. Here it is, the tafsir. كان الناس أمة واحدة أي كان الذين آمنوا بموسى أمة واحدة. لا, we're not. على دين واحد مذهب واحد ثم اختلفوا. Okay, so Fakhr Razi says this refers to Moses' people altogether. Okay, so no, this is not what the tafsir we're looking for here. Because there's awjuh to the tafsir. كان الناس يقوم معينهم خلاف الظاهر لا إلا أنك تعلم أن الألف واللام كما تكون الاستغراق فقد تكون أيضا للعهد. No, not what we're looking for. Let's check Ibn Ashur. فجاء عيسى عليه السلام. Why don't you actually reverse it? Let's go type in Arabic the hadith اختلفت لغاتهم. اختلفت لغاتهم. Because that's what the hadith says. فاختلفت لغاتهم. Or, yeah, feminine. Okay. فجاء عيسى عليه السلام يطلبهم فقالوا ليس ها هنا. فقال فما في هذا البيت فقالوا خنازير. قال عيسى كذلك يكونون. ففتحوا عنهم فإذا هم خنازير. They said, don't play with these boys anymore. They said, don't go and play next to this magician anymore. And they gathered all the kids in one house. Stay away from Jesus. So Isa alayhi salam says, well, where are the kids? Where'd they go? Right? Someone said from behind the door, no, they're not here. Really? So and then what's all that noise? I hear noise. Kids obviously make noise. I hear noise. They said, no, these are some pigs we have. We own some pigs. Prophet Isa says, oh, those are pigs making the noise? They said, yes. He said, all right, let them be as you said. Let them be as you said. Okay? So they turned around, the kids were pigs. So the people, they started spreading this word, started to spread amongst the people. And they went to go and chase Prophet Isa and track him down. When okay. Why? Because Prophet Isa was a child at that time. He wanted to play. He didn't mention that here. He wanted to play. Okay. With them. Oh, okay. So this is the part. I don't know why they didn't mention this. They didn't mention this. But this is about the childhood of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam. That he was playing with some. All right. Here, Waqas, if you're going to cut this part, cut it from here. This miracle is about the childhood of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam. That he was playing with some kids. And he would be shown the future of these kids. And he would tell them, your parents just ate this and they saved this for you. So the kids would run home and say, oh, you saved us this food and you ate that? Give us the food you saved. And they said, how do you know this? They said, Isa told us. They said, this is a magician boy. Stay away from him. So then Isa goes to play again, as every child does, and be with the youth. Of course, prophets only play in a noble way. Even as children, they're examples. So they said, where are the kids? No, they're not allowed to play with you anymore. They're all in this house over here. So that hurts a child, right? And prophets are human beings. They could be hurt by that. So he went, they're all in that house. He went to go and play with them and be with the youth and the kids. They're still a child. Very small child. So he knocks on the door. Are the kids there? No, nobody's there, they said. But I hear noise. What is that? They said, these are just some pigs. He says, كَذَلِكَ يَكُونُونَ. He said, let them be that way. As you said it. This is what you said, right? Let them be that way. So they turned around and found they're all pigs. And this story spread far and wide amongst the people. Okay? That the people began hunting him down as a boy. And Sayyidah Maryam feared for him, took him onto a donkey, and ran to Egypt. She traveled to Egypt. Qatada says, إنما كان هذا في المائدة وكانت خوانا ينزل عليهم أينما كانوا كالمن والسلوى. And wherever they were, Allah would bring them food. Okay. And he said that food would come down wherever Prophet Isa was, and he would order them, eat and distribute the food, and don't save any, because Allah will bring you more, but they would go against it, and they would hoard the food. Okay. And that's why Allah Ta'ala transformed them into pigs. Okay. Very interesting and ajib story, which I wonder, is it in the Christian books or not? Okay. But again, miracles for us is not the be all and end all. We need to see tasdiq. So what does the next ayah says? وَمُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ. We have minds. There's transmitted knowledge from the time of Adam about what the truth is, what God is like, what is goodness. So if you come doing miracles and then you affirm the Sharia and affirm the Tawheed, then I know it's a true miracle. But if you come doing these tricks and doing these things, but you're calling to something other than what we know from these other sources of truth and information, then we call you a sahir. Okay? And the miracle is to strengthen your belief in him and to know that everything else he says is the truth. What does Ibn Ashur says? Ibn Ashur says, اختلفت لغات البشر آية عظيمة. The change, the difference in the languages of people is a great sign. آية عظيمة. فهم مع اتحادهم في النوع كان اختلاف لغاتهم آية دالة على ما I'm trying to read here. Can you expand? Yeah, expand it. Yeah, there you go. Now it's one more click. Look how high tech you are. It went go the other way. Yeah, good. Thank you so much. Yeah. فاختلاف الألسنة. No. كان. Yes, thank you. Ibn Ashur says, واختلاف لغات البشر آية. The difference in the languages of the people is a sign, a great sign. فهم مع اتحادهم في النوع, although they're one type, كان اختلاف لغاتهم آية دالة على ما كونه الله في غريزة البشر من اختلاف التفكير وتنويع التصرف ووضع اللغات. So it's a sign that it is Allah who differentiates between their abilities, etc. وتبدل كيفياتها باللهجات, and even in one language showing that it could be different with different accents. تخفيف الحذف الزيادة بحيث تتغير الأصول المتحدة إلى لغات كثيرة. فلا شك أن اللغة كانت واحدة للبشر حين كانوا في مكان واحد. There you go. So no doubt that the people had one language when they were in the same place. وما اختلفت اللغات إلا بانتشار قبائل البشر في مواطن متباعدة. Then the languages changed the more they separated from one another into different far away places. وتطرق التغير إلى لغاتهم تطرقا تدريجيا. Now he says something different here. He's saying, I'm not saying it's wrong. He's saying the language has changed over time. على أن توسع اللغات بتوسع الحاجة إلى التعبير عن أشياء لم يكن للتعبير عنها حاجة قد أوجب اختلافا في وضع الأسماء لها فاختلفت اللغات بذلك, because they saw they have different needs. So one nation needs to talk about the desert, another needs to talk about the snow, etc. So their languages changed slowly over time. بذلك في جوهرها كما اختلفت فيما. So all this is his dhan, his opinion on this. Keep going. We're looking for the transmission where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said they woke up speaking different languages. Okay, here we go. Now he starts quoting the Bible. يسقى بماء واحد ونفضل بعضها على بعض في الأكل. He says like it's like fruits. They all get the same rain, but they come out differently. ولما في ذلك الاختلاف من الأسرار المقتضية إياه ووقع في الإصحاح 11 in the book 11 from Genesis من سفر التكوين ما يوهم ظاهره أن اختلاف الألسن حصل دفعة واحدة. Keep going up. He says that it is in the book of Genesis what would give the image, apparently, that the change of languages happened in one shot after the flood. Okay, while they were in Babel. وأن البشر تفرقوا بعد ذلك, and they separated after that. والظاهر أنه وقع في العبارة تقديم وتأخير. And in fact, no, the expression has in it an advancement of something that happened later. In other words, you're saying, and this happened, then this happened, but you're listing things that had in between it a long period of time. وأن التفرق وقع قبل تبلبل الألسن. And he says, no. He says that the separation happens, physical separation, before the linguistic separation. وقد علل في ذلك الإصحاح بما ينزه الله عن مدلوله وقيل أراد باختلاف الألسنة اختلاف الأصوات بحيث تتمايز أصوات الناس متكلمين بلغة واحدة فنعرف صاحب الصوت وإن كان غير مرئي. وأما اختلاف ألوان البشر فهو آية أيضا لأن البشر منحدر من أصل واحد. Now he gets to the races. So basically he doesn't accept that they woke up speaking different languages. And it's not aqidah for us. It's narrations, and you can believe whichever you wish. So he's saying their bodies got separated, and as a result, their languages. Now he's going to talk about the races. Okay. They're all from one, which is Adam. وَلَهُ لَوْن. And he has one race, without doubt. وَلَعَلَّهُ الْبَيَاضُ الْمَشُوبُ بِحُمْرَةٍ. And he says, perhaps it is, from the narrations, a light-skinned with some redness. White with some redness. فلما تعدد نسله جاءت الألوان المختلفة scrolling في بشراتهم وذلك لاختلاف معلول لعدة علل. Okay, good. He says here, now after that, the races developed, and his lineage had many different colors. And he says there are many reasons for this. Number one, المواطن المختلفة بالحرارة والبرودة. Okay. وتوالد من أبوين مختلفي اللون مثل المتولد من سوداء وأب أبيض. Okay, so he says here, the first reason is they went to different lands that have different heat and coldness. So is he saying now that they change slowly? So because that the reason I don't accept that is that I don't think that's true. That just by going to another country, your race is not going to change. And another thing is the difference of parentage. So different races of different parentage. Well, we just said they were all one race. So that's the second one, which hard to accept. And another one, sicknesses. Okay. And sicknesses would alter the skin. Complete speculation. That's number 3. Number 4, اختلاف الأغذية, different foods. ولذلك لم يكن اختلاف ألوان البشر دليلا على اختلاف النوع بل هو نوع واحد. Different. Number 4, he says different foods. So if I start eating the food from the northern hemisphere only, am I going to become white with blue eyes and blonde hair? Hard to believe, hard to accept that, right? So if we go to so if you take a man from Nigeria and he goes to Ireland and all he eats is potato and Irish food, he's going to become Irish over a few families down? Nah, far off. But by the way, Ibn Ashur, I don't want to say he's a rationalist, but he tends to bring things down to the material. I'm telling you, there is a narration. We're going to get it. And if on your phone, keep looking for that while I keep reading. فللبشر ألوان كثيرة أصلها البياض والسواد. He said the origin of people have many different colors. The origin of these colors is white or black. In other words, the extremes. Not necessarily. وقد أشار إلى هذا أبو علي بن سينا. Oh, forget it. I don't want to hear Ibn Sina. Okay. And he pointed to that is Ibn Sina, Avicenna. Okay. كان أرجوزته في الطب تقول, and his بقول yeah, so it's in tib. But you know, he's a rationalist. He doesn't accept narrations. I accept narrations. He says here, أرجوزيته في الطب, his poem in medicine, he says, بالنزج حر غير الأجساد حتى كسى بياضها سوادا. He says, because down in Africa, the heat change the skin from white to black? You're making stuff up. There's no proof for this. وَالثَّقْلَبُ اكْتَسَبَتِ الْبَيَاضَ. And he said, I guess another, I don't know what, الثَّقْلَب, the middle people, I guess, they went up north because of the cold, they became white. Yeah, Jamal, we've been seeing migration for hundreds, thousands of years. Mere migration into an environment and food. Not, I'm not saying they're saying at one time, but no, it's not what's going to happen. Okay. How many hundreds of years have people from different races been in other countries? So the whites from the Dutch, okay, the Netherlands, and England, and all these places, they've been in South Africa and Zimbabwe for how many centuries now? Nothing changed. Absolutely zero changed. Okay. حتى غدت جلودها. This is some old ideas here. I don't think it's true. حتى غدت جلودها بضادا وكان أصل اللون البياض لأنه غير محتاج إلى علة ولأن التشريح أثبت أن الألوان لحوم البشر التي تحت الطبقة الجلدية متحدة اللون. Nah. You're allowed to believe this if you want, but I'm not. Okay, so then explain the other facial features, right? So you're saying the skins changed. Explain through this Ibn Sina's theory here the other facial features. Why are eyes different? Why are lips different? Why are heights different? Not accepting. Sorry about that. Let's look this up. Let's look at some narrations here. By the way, I don't know if any of the narrations will be sahih, but it's still, you can't find. Oh, okay, let's look at those. Talib Razi says the Saqalib were the Slavs. Yeah, so people eventually became white because they went and lived in cold areas. This is some. Let's see. All right, let's read another one that's all narrations here. عن سبب انقسام الشعوب فإن الله تعالى خلق كل البشر من نفس واحدة. Allah created all people from one. وجعل منها زوجها وهي آدم وحواء, and he made its the pair, which is Adam and Eve. وجعلهم شعوبا وفصائل وقبائل, and there were tribes and branches and nations. Nations first. Nations are people tied by like a language and a location. Tribes are connected by blood and family. Usually people start off as tribes and they get so big and so many relatives, it's just by nations. They just organize themselves differently. Okay. وقد فطر الله تعالى البشر على الاختلاف في المذاهب والآراء والعقائد ولو شاء لجعلهم شعبا واحدا وأمة واحدة, and they all differ, of course. Now تفسير ابن كثير. أي ولا يزال الخلف بين الناس في أديانهم واعتقادهم ومللهم. People changed, of course, in their beliefs, etc. Okay, etc., etc. Not the information we're looking for. As for the change, أما اختلاف اللغات وتعددها. As for the difference of language, and فمن الدلائل الواضحة على عظمة الله, it's one of the signs of God. Ibn Kathir says, no, nothing yet. أما تاريخ هذا الانقسام. Here we go. As for the history of this separation of languages, فليس لدينا دليل صريح يحدد ذلك. Number one thing we've been saying, there is no قطعي straight thing anyone has to believe on this. Okay, there isn't, and there's nothing that you see and believe that you say you must believe this, and this is absolutely true. That's the number one epistemologically. We have to discuss that, the source of what we're talking about. لكن ما ذكرناه من تعلم آدم للغات وما ذكره كثير من المفسرين والمؤرخين من أن سام ابن نوح أبو العرب ويافث أبو الترك وحام أبو الحبش والبربر. And they say Sam, son of Noah, is the founder of the Semitic people. Japheth is the founder of the Turkic people. Ham is the founder of the African people. Allah knows best even. وقد يدل على أن هذا الانقسام بدأ من عصر أبناء نوح. And this happened, Ibn Kathir says in the Bidayah and Nihaya, after the flood. فإن الله لم يجعل لأحد ممن كان معه من المؤمنين نسلا ولا عقبا سوى نوح. First of all the believers. Here we go. All the believers, none of them had a lineage that lasted except the lineage of Noah. So even if like you had a son or a daughter, intermarried into Noah's generation. So all lineages go back to Noah. That's number one. وَجَعَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُ هُمُ الْبَاقِينَ. That's why Allah says in Surah As-Safat, we made his lineage, they're the ones that remain. Doesn't mean that they didn't have kids, the other families. No, if they had kids, they intermarried into Noah's family and became part of that. وكل من على وجه الأرض اليوم من سائر أجناس بني آدم ينسبون إلى أولاد نوح الثلاثة Sam, وحام ويافث. So all the people on the earth today descend from Noah through Sam, Ham, and Japheth. ثم ساق الحديث الذي رواه أحمد والترمذي. Okay, so this is actually, hold on, a narration from Ahmad and Tirmidhi. I didn't know this. Sam is the father of the Arabs. This is the one I like sort of brushed to the side. Ham is the father of the Habash, the Africans. And Japheth is the father of the Romans. وإسناده ضعيف. Weak isnad. Again, you do not have to believe it. It's just a narration. Okay. And of course, they're just mentioning the people that Arabs deal with. Arabs deal with themselves. Arabs go north and they deal with the Romans. Arabs go west and deal with the Africans. You didn't mention the other ones. وولد كل واحد من هذه الثلاثة ثلاثة. Each child of these had 3 sons. Sam had 3, Japheth had 3, Ham had 3. So Sam gave birth to the Arabs, the Persians, and the Romans. This is a total different hadith. So Romans, Arabs, and Persians are all from Sam. Japheth then gave birth to the Turks, the Slavs, and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And then Ham gave birth to the Egyptians and the Sudan and the Sudan, the blacks, and the Berbers. Allah knows best. Allah knows best if it's the narration, but it doesn't say the mention of the language. Let's take a look at another source here. Again, to mention these are narrations. Ibn Ashur is given theories that he's trying to use also. He's relying upon Avicenna's. And you may believe in these or you may believe in none of them. But you cannot establish with jazm anything. You can't say with jazm any of these are true. Because we don't have something transmitted to us with jazm or evidence, okay, that we would have to believe in. And that's the most important thing when we discuss these types of things. Anyway, we got way off course talking about this, right, Edif? But I'm like sort of like insisting to find that the statement that it's gonna probably be in the Bidayah and Nihaya. They woke up, they spoke in different languages. Okay. All right, let's take a look here. ذكر أهل التاريخ أن عدة لغات البشر 72 لغة توزعت على أبناء نوح عليه السلام، فكان منها 37 لغة في ذرية يافث Okay, so all these languages again came from وقالوا إن from the time of Noah إن ليافث 37 blah blah blah. Doesn't mention that they were born. Okay. I'll look it up. We'll look it up, inshallah. But we can't spend more time on this here. All right. What is the truth about Sayyidina Ali? Did he lift a very heavy door? Yes, he did. What's the issue about Sayyidina Ali lifting a very heavy door? There's narrations for that door, by the way, for that make us permitted to believe that. And yeah, and he did lift an extremely heavy door. You want to look that up, Alif, if you have time? Yeah. I'll take one or two questions from here, but yes, he did lift a very heavy door. It was a gate, by the way. Talib Razi says, we all came from Adam and Eve, who were miraculously created from clay, but after that, there could be selection effects, just like how we see different breeds of dogs bred from wolves. So in a population, over a long period of time, those who happen to be lighter and darker survive better in different latitudes. Hence, over time, our colors change. It's possible. Again, there is no set aqidah on how, on what to believe on this. No set aqidah. Open up Arifu, my iPad for a second, please. I want to show everybody here. Yeah, should be up now. All right, everybody, take a look at what Safina Society does. First thing, it's taking a while to load, so let it load for a second until everything. Here's a question from F Storm. If someone's spouse dies, are they no longer mahram? Are they allowed to look at their picture? In the Hanafi school, they are not. But in the Maliki school, they are. And the Maliki proof is that Sayyidina Ali buried Sayyidah Fatima. Simple as that. And he did a ghusl for her. That's the Maliki proof. The Hanafi proof is that if a man would have 4 wives, one dies, then he marries a 4th wife. That means the 5th, the previous one that he just buried, is not his wife. So I guess from that he wouldn't be able to look at her, but that's a sort of hard to swallow, although we don't really criticize the madhahib's opinions, but I'm far more convinced with the Maliki opinion. Okay. Because what does the marriage of 4 have to do when one of them is dead? And if could you go on to on your screen, it's not coming up on my iPad, safinasociety.org. Yeah, it's not loading properly though. Yeah. Yeah. And why are basically people disbelieving that Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib lifted a very heavy gate? The narrations say he lifted it. And they say 7 of us could not lift it before. The Sahaba said this. 7 of us tried to lift it, Sayyidina Ali lifted it. What, you don't believe in Karamat al-Awliya? It's a Karama. I want to try to make the payment. A wire would have fees, but is there any way, any person I could sell it to that we can avoid the fees. What's the issue with having a karama? Subhanallah. All right, let's go scroll up. Now, the first subsidiary that Safina Society has is ArcView. And that's where you learn the basics. You can study deeper, 2 hours a week. You could take Arabic, and coming soon, the Sunusi tradition, which is the Aqidah, intensive Aqidah course throughout the whole year. Then make sure you get ready for this. Get ready for this. An intensive taught by Abdurrahman Mehrig, one of the strongest shiyukh in Aqidah. Okay. The Sunusi tradition. So that's on ArcView. That's our number one most important subsidiary. Of course, Nothing But Facts is one of them. Keep going. Then we have a seminary here in the great state of New Jersey, part-time scholarship. We have 3 levels now, 3 times a week at MBIC, and one of them is virtual. Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, and then Thursday they just take it virtually. But you have to be in New Jersey to take this. You have to be a local. Okay. So you can sign up at darulfats.org. Next, of course, Hifz al-Quran is absolutely critical. Cannot have anything program without Hifz. And Qari Zahid and others lead this program. Next one. Of course, you all know about our soup kitchen, where we distribute a dinner every Wednesday and now Thursday. We've added Thursday too. And you go to and support us at lacocina367.org and become a donor to support these dinners that we're running, and maybe we'll run a campaign for that. So that's another subsidiary. The next subsidiary is the Nothing But Facts live stream, which is what you're witnessing now. We are gone way beyond our 2 hours. Usually we do 90 minutes to 2 hours, but we really got into the stuff. Isn't this tafsir? It's like an ocean. And it's like, hey, let's go look at that fish. And you go look at that fish, and then another fish catches your eye. Whoa, what was that? We got to go catch that one. We didn't even finish looking at the first one yet. But you can watch live on YouTube and TikTok, Spotify, Apple, and Google Play. We got 3 official hosts, myself, Sheikh John Starling, and Imam Safwan Eid. Okay. And you can advertise. You want to advertise on NBF, just like Dean Arts is our sponsor today. Chicago Fragrance is our sponsor today. You go to salman.ahmed@safinasociety.org. And then lastly, not a subsidiary per se, but one of our most important things, we do classes in the masjid known as the New Brunswick Islamic Center. That's our headquarters. That's where we're always at. And you could check us out there. Inshallah ta'ala. All right, so I think we have to stop there because we gone heavy on the time. Let's just take one more look. Okay. Ya Ahl Sunnah, are you denying that Sayyidina Ali lifted the gate? Why would you deny such a thing? Okay. Don't make me look it up because I got another 20 minutes. All right, I'm looking it up. The exact narration. Okay. Sayyidina Ali, it happened at Khaybar, and he lifted a gate. What's so complex about that? That's not even the number one Karama of Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib. It's not even. وردت okay. قال ابن إسحاق said حدثني عبد الله ابن الحسن عن بعض أهله عن أبي رافع مولى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Abu Rafi', the servant of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, said, we went out with Ali bin Abi Talib when the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم sent him with the flag. The Battle of Khaybar, it's a siege. The siege many days. Then Ali bin Abi Talib was given the flag on one of these days. They were hopefully, this is the day we're going to break through here. When he got near to the castle, enemy came out and they fought. Okay. So a gate apparently fell. Okay. And it's حسن خرج إليه أهله فقتله فضربه رجل من يهود فطاح ثرسه من يده فتناول رضي الله عنه بابا كان عند so it looks like the shield of Sayyidina Ali came out of his hand. A man struck him. The shields came out of his hand. There was a gate that had fallen. So Sayyidina Ali took the gate, the door, and used it as a shield. فَلَمْ يَزَلْ فِي يَدِهِ وَهُوَ يُقَاتِلْ حَتَّى فَتَحَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. And he used a gate as a shield for the rest of the battle. He didn't just move it from one place to another. Okay. After the battle, he threw it. ثُمَّ أَلْقَاهُ مِنْ يَدِهِ حِينَ فَرَغَ. He's done. فَلَقَدْ رَأَيْتُنِي. The servant of the Prophet is saying, I saw myself فِي نَفَرٍ سَبْعَةٍ مَعِي أَنَا ثَامِنُهُم. Me and 7 others, so we're 8, went to move that. They need to move it for some reason. نجهد على أن نقلب ذلك الباب فما نقلبه. We just needed to turn the gate over. 8 of us couldn't do it. What's the issue? How did people die in the Battle of Badr? Did not the Muslims say, we ran to attack the enemy, and lo and behold, he's cut down before we even got to him? Right? So what is holding a shield? So how does that happen? Easily. Malaika are helping. Ta'eed, the ayat of ta'eed. You should study the ayat of ta'eed. It shows how does Allah help people. Allah helps people however He wishes. I was just talking to a man and he's asking me, is it true, Ahlul Khutwa, is it true that there are people who can go from one place to another in a few steps? Is it true that Sayyidina Sulaiman, his companion, was able to bring the throne of Bilqis? And he said, was it because he tapped into the jinn? He says, not tapped into the jinn, because Allah. And Allah praises it. He says he had ilm min al-kitab. He had knowledge of the book. Ilm al-kitab. Therefore, it's true knowledge, not sorcery and magic. So he said, how? I said, very simple. When you utter these words, it's almost as if you pressed a code. The angel answers you and says, here, you want this from Jerusalem to Ethiopia? Or Ethiopia? Bring it to Jerusalem. As if Allah has an angel commanded, if you hear this dua, you go and immediately serve this person. What does he want? In the blink of an eye, this happens. Because time is different with the heavens. Okay? You don't calculate it with what you know here in this world, such that a message takes a few seconds to reach, and then by the time it takes action. No, don't measure it like that. You utter the dhikr, these kalimat, and it would seem to be through malaika. The angel comes. What is it? What did you want? A throne? How much effort does it take for an angel to pick up a throne? How much effort does it take for me to pick up this pen? Or a 5-year-old to pick up this pen that's not even weighable on a scale? And move it from one side of the table to the other. What is the earth for an angel? To pick up a throne, put it one side to another. And time is different from them, so it's instantaneous for us. Okay. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. إذا عرف السبب بطل العجب. That's what you just summary of what Alif just said. Once you know how it happens in the world, you're not amazed anymore. I mean, just go forget our ancestors. If it was Sunday and me and my friend back in the day we were playing and our net got ripped, we would have to wait all the way until one of our parents could go to the store, and in the whole town, there was nobody who sold hockey nets. They sold soccer nets, but not hockey nets. Someone would have to search. We would have to get a book, see where we can get a small hold net. And it would maybe take us 2 months. But today, and we live right next to an Amazon warehouse here. Probably if the net rips by 3 o'clock, if I pay extra, I can have it by 5 o'clock. Because we know the asbab. The world changed. Is this hadith sahih, obligating belief in it? No, there's jahala in it, because it says here on the narration of one of our family members. Okay? The narration says here, Abdullah, son of Al-Hasan, narrates from one of his family members. From Abu Rafi', the servant of the Prophet ﷺ. So just because it says one of our family members here, therefore, you're not obligated to believe it. Okay? Al-Dhahabi says, mentions this, but he mentions the hadith. Ibn Kathir makes the same point. Al-Bayhaqi adds to it, or gives a narration with more. أن عليا حمل الباب يوم خيبر حتى صعد المسلمون عليه فافتتحوها. That he picked up the gate, and the Muslims stood on the gate in order to get over the castle. And then Al-Bayhaqi says, after that, they said, let's do it again. But 40 people could not lift the gate. And Sayyidina Ali lifted it. Okay. وقال ابن كثير وفي رواية ضعيفة عن جابر. And in another weak narration from Jabir ibn Abdullah, then 70 people came and couldn't lift it. Clearly, Karama min Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib. Okay. And there are many, many weak narrations. Some are attacked, and some are less attacked. All right. Such as Haram ibn Uthman. And it's matruk. So therefore, if you disbelieve it, no one can say that you have a flaw in your religion. And if you believe it, you're permitted to believe it. Sakhawi says, Hadith Haml Ali Bab Khaybar أورده ابن إسحاق في السيرة عن أبي رافع مولى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأن 7 وهو ثامنهم اجتهدوا أن يقلبوه فلم يستطيعوا ومن طريق ابن إسحاق أخرجه البيهقي في الدلائل ورواه الحاكم وعنه البيهقي في الدلائل. All these people narrated it. من جهة ليث ابن أبي سليم, from different جهات. This one's from Layth ibn Abi Sulaym عن أبي جعفر محمد بن علي بن حسين ابن جابر أو عن جابر أن عليا حمل الباب يوم خيبر. Okay. So on and on and on. The summary of which, are you obligated to believe that it's possible? Yes. You have to believe this is possible. You cannot say it's impossible. But based on the narration, you are permitted to believe it and permitted to not believe it. Okay? سهلة جدا. Not even a mas'ala. Okay? All right, we got to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone long enough. Kept Alif, probably from studying. Where did you study? Where do you have to study these days, ya Alihu? All that medical stuff. All right, folks. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.